What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Second Avenue Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathon and Elijah.
And I'm your other host, Elijah Venencia. I want to start it off by just saying thank you to everybody that supported us throughout the week. We felt like we really had a good first week. So just thank you to everybody who helped out with that, whether it's an Instagram story post or just adding the podcast on your stories. I just want to thank everybody for that first off. How do you think the first week went for you, Jonathan? Anything to say?
Man, I just want to piggyback on what you said. Thank you to everybody that watched, told a friend to listen, anything like that. It really means a lot to us for our first week to go so well. I'm really excited about what the future holds for us. We put up some pretty good numbers, I think, for our first episode. I feel like it's a J. Cole tweet about I only have 500 followers or whatever. It may not be a lot to some of you. That's how I felt. I was like, we might not have 10,000 listeners, but I appreciate everybody that listened, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
We also appreciate any feedback left, whether that's, texting us personally or doing it throughout the podcast on Apple or Spotify, or even in the YouTube comments. Those actually mean a lot and everything. So, if you guys personally have me or Jonathan on Snapchat, or even if you want to drop a question in the comments somewhere, we'll see it and we'll get it in this week's episode. We do have a couple that we'll get to later on. So other than that, I think we're ready to start.
Yep. So today's episode, we're going to do a recap of 2021, a couple key points from 2021 that, we thought were good conversation points. Then we're going to go into some of the releases from last year and choose one song from each month that we think best identifies some of the key moments and key drops from that month. And then we're going to get on some of the recent news that happened this past week in music. And then finally, we'll get two fan questions. So without further ado, Elijah, you want to start us off with some of the important rap news in 2021?
This is kind of right at the beginning of last year when Donald Trump, he pardoned Kodak Black and Lil Wayne on his last day in office. Along with many, many others, that were wrongfully, locked up, or maybe they weren't, but, it's just good to see, get some rappers back in the game, of course,
Yeah, man. I don't agree with too many things that Donald Trump did, but freeing Wayne and Kodak, shout out to him for that. Also, shout out to him for freeing A$AP Rocky back in the day. He got A$AP Rocky out of Sweden. That was a big move.
And maybe we don't get Super Gremlin, and maybe we don't get, AB's memes he's posting on Twitter or anything without that. So, shout outs.
I think that's the only thing I'll give him a shout out for. But yeah, shout out to Donald Trump for that. I also kind of want to go back to something that happened on New Year's Eve 2020. We found out about the loss of MF Doom. We started off 2021. I was down
where we left off in 2020. It's just,
I was like, of course, the year is ending like this. One of the greatest rappers, your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. We joke that Nav is your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, but it is MF Doom that is your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. Look at the receipts. That man has had so much impact on the rap game. And so to end probably the worst year of our lives with that news, it just made sense.
It was just fitting, of course.
It was just fitting.
R.I.P. though, of course. So.
R.I.P. the GOAT, R.I.P. the villain, safe travels. I feel like this 2021 recap, where should we talk about Kanye? Kanye dominated this year.
Just everywhere.
It's crazy.
It's any year Kanye's dropping an album, he's going to get his name out there. He's going to get his name in the headlines, of course. So
definitely. So, I think we can't talk about 2021 without talking about Donda. Let's talk about that rollout. You had the chance to go to one of the listening parties. What do you think about that? Tell us a little bit about that.
I had to capitalize on the opportunity. He was in Chicago, just a few hours away from us. Jonathan was actually supposed to be there, but he was at the No Label Academy. You see it on the shirt.
Always rapping.
It was just such a crazy experience. And I remember talking to you in the summer, and I was like, next chance I get, I have to. I was like, it could be Kanye's last tour. So, but luckily it looks like he's going to do some things this year.
Definitely looks that way. And I had the chance to see Kanye twice before. So I was kind of like, as upset as I was, obviously I was living a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I'm obviously not upset about missing the Donda listening party, but it would have been cool to see. But going back to that Donda rollout, man, there were so many things going on. When Kanye first started premiering some of these songs at that Las Vegas little listening party he did, so many changes would be made to that album that we didn't know were going to happen. And then the whole Atlanta listening party, that's what changed everything. Were you watching that first Atlanta listening party?
Yeah. And funny enough, so like just all throughout, he had so many part twos for the songs. I did at the Chicago show, I was like, he cut Cuddy's verse, he cut Jay-Z's verse, whereas they were there at the Atlanta shows. So it was very interesting to see that. And then, on release day, of course, hearing those verses that were very good verses, of course. And it was good to have those.
Definitely. And it was very wild that it came out on Sunday too. I mean, that was just a random drop day, but it's a very Kanye thing.
Yeah. He didn't want it to drop though. It wasn't ready.
No, I mean, you saw that with all the changes that were made to the album since it's been dropped. So yeah, definitely a very Kanye drop in every aspect.
And then, I mean, even like all throughout that, the Drake beef, are they dropping the same week? What's going on with that? And, I going back to that time, I was just like, I didn't know whose side I was on, the two of my favorite artists, of course. But, I mean, the only solid, thing I was solidified with was Drake's going to outsell Kanye, regardless of who has the better album. So,
yeah, Drake putting up huge numbers, of course. But who do you think won the CLB versus Donda album release?
Personally, I like the Donda album a little bit more. CLB wasn't my favorite Drake album that he's released, but I mean, it's still a Drake album, of course. So I definitely say Donda was the better album. I mean, that'd be my pick. How about you?
I'd have to go with Donda. I think Donda was just a much better album overall. I think that neither of these albums really ranks very high in either of the artist catalogs, but Donda ranked pretty high in my end of the year album ranking. I think I put it at the 6th spot, whereas CLB didn't make my top 10. Didn't really listen to it too much outside of that first listen. Didn't have too much replay value like some of the more recent Drake albums. But as you mentioned, it is a classic Drake album. I mean, it has some good songs. It has some bad songs. A standout for me, I mean, Fair Trade was a very good song. Champagne Poetry, some good songs.
TSU, of course.
TSU, of course.
Another thing I want to get to on both those albums, both the covers were trash. I mean, you're not going to see those on the wall behind me, with all the other vinyls. They will not be there.
No, absolutely
did not spend too much time in the lab, it seems.
No, and I feel like I even saw some of these other like potential covers for CLB, and they were so much better. Like there was one with him with football shoulder pads on. He had like eye black. I was like, oh, that kind of goes hard, I guess.
I mean, I think anything's better than
the pregnant emojis.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, not too bad.
Of course they made amends by the end of the year, with the Free Larry Hoover concert, someone who Trump didn't pardon there, back to that a little bit, backtrack a little bit. But, that was just such a crazy thing. I can't remember I think I was playing basketball one night and I just went back to my phone and it was just I viewed someone's Instagram story and it was Kanye and Drake. I was like, what the hell? I bet, I'm happy for it, of course, to have them both on good terms.
Yeah, it was very surprising to see that those two would be putting their beef aside. I mean, it's been such a long-standing beef. Take it back to, I mean, as far back as Find Your Love, and then even more recently with things like the diss on Pusha T's Daytona album and Sicko Mode, all these songs, the throwaway of Lift Yourself. Kanye just ruined this beautiful beat that was made for Drake. And then you just see them not really get along, not really see eye to eye. But to put it all aside for that one night, and now hopefully for the future, it's really exciting to see what's possible for the future of these two.
Yeah, definitely surprising. I mean, with just all the back and forth shots, the checks over stripes line, or the whole thing with the Donis, of course. Even that spanned into Scorpion a little bit. What was that? 2018 with the Kiki, do you love me? Is that about Kim? Then the bars, the crept down the block, made it right. So I mean, Drake's doing what he's doing, of course, and then Kanye is a little more blatant about it. But
these two are so calculated about their moves that they're not. They think they're slick about some of these moves, but they are not. It's pretty obvious to most people.
Definitely. But I mean, it was an amazing show that they did. So hopefully we get more in the future.
I agree. I would have killed to be at that show. That Kanye set was legendary. I mean, he played all the classics from College Dropout all the way to the recent Donda releases. Oh, would have been crazy to see. Drake, I get what he was doing. Everybody was kind of clowning on him on Twitter when that was happening. I feel like he was probably just testing the waters. He hasn't performed in a while to see what the crowd's like. And so when he goes on tour for CLB, he knows what the hits are going to be. But man, I feel like you could tell off the streaming numbers. You don't really got to do that. I feel like if we would have got some of the classic Take Care and Nothing Was the Same, and If You're Reading Since Too Late, Drake,
it would have been one of the best shows ever, of course. But
I would have
I
paid
mean,
anything to be there.
I think another underrated point with that is I feel like Kanye has always resented Drake just because he's just kind of like the star of the show here. Like we said last week, he's arguably the biggest artist in music. So I think he maybe his thought process was not I'm just gonna do some things off my last album versus bringing out some classics, because Kanye's bringing out some classics. So
Definitely. One point of this beef that happened this year, Kanye releasing Drake's address. What did you think about that?
it was funny, and then Drake just posting the laughing video with it. It's just the beef did feel one-sided, at some points.
It did.
Just coming straight from Kanye's camp or just Kanye himself. So I mean, it was just all petty, of course. So I'm glad to see it over.
I definitely agree. But the whole thing about the address, I'm just so confused. Like, I feel like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that would have been a big deal. But like, you could find Drake's address on Google if you really want to know.
Yeah,
these kids on TikTok are probably taking videos outside. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's not that big of a deal, but it was still pretty crazy that he just did
but
it.
at the same time, the whole situation with Pop Smoke where he accidentally leaked his address, and that ended up costing him his life. So I mean, at the same time,
definitely a valid point. And I mean, we can't not mention the group text. I would love to be in that Kanye group text to Drake and Pusha T and Virgil. I mean, all these people allegedly. I mean, we just see the little letters,
yeah,
so we're just thinking. But I
love that text. I'll send it to you sometimes, just messing around, or I'll send it to my friends. Just the exactly what he did. Just no, that was funny too. That was another. I felt like this year, it's just there's a lot of funny stuff, from each side. So
definitely, Kanye's just in his Joker bag all year, and
Kanye is the Joker. He
low-key.
Maybe Drake's the Dark Knight.
Yeah, maybe. We've been talking about some of the biggest artists in the game. Let's move on to one of the other biggest rappers in the game right now, Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar late last year announced that his next release would be his final project with TDE. What were your thoughts when you heard this news?
It was kind of a little bit shocking, I mean, the label he's been with for all of his career. So, I mean, it's just shocking to see, but it's also, what's going to happen after. I personally think that this is it for Kendrick. This will be his last album he drops. I mean,
wow. That's crazy to think about, because I mean, we talked about last episode, kind of these rappers have been a part of our lives for like 10 plus years. You know what I mean? So it's inevitable that some of these rappers are going to start retiring at some point. You know what I mean? I mean, Kanye is in his 40s. Some of these rappers are in their 30s, late 30s even. So, I mean, it is definitely inevitable that we see some of these rappers start retiring. I do think that Kendrick has a little bit left up his sleeve. You look at the PG Lang company that he's founding with Dave Free, kind of unknown what they're going to be doing, but I do think that Kendrick will have some music releases under that label. So we'll see what's next with them. But I mean, they've been doing some work with Baby Keem and Georgia Smith and all these different artists in their commercials. So I'd be excited to see some releases from them.
Definitely. And it just kind of, what it looks like to me is just Kendrick handing over the keys a little bit. We haven't really had consistent Kendrick since what? Damn was his last album.
Yep.
Pimp a Butterfly was 2 years before. Then so I mean, he's always been a consistent every 2 years artist at least. I mean, 2017 was Damn. That's 5 years at this point. That's
I think I just saw a tweet today that was like 1,750 days, I believe, which is that's crazy. That's a long time. I mean, but I do think it's a pretty good sign that we will be getting new music from Kendrick here pretty soon. So that's definitely an exciting thing to be looking forward to this year.
All right, and then our final thing of our 2020 recap. It came the latest, so of course, it's going to come in last. Frank Ocean premiering his new music on Blonded Radio on Apple Music. That was on Christmas Day as well. It was pretty good Christmas present. So we need Frank to drop soon, of course, but I'll let you.
And you know what? I put Frank in my honorable mentions last episode. One of my guys, one of my all-time favorite artists. So to get that Christmas present, man, best Christmas present I got. And I had COVID during Christmas, so I was just spending it in my room. So to spend it with that Frank Ocean in my headphones made it a little bit better. So that was nice.
Yeah, hopefully we get that Frank project coming this year. Hopefully, it's another one who hasn't dropped in quite a few years. So
Definitely. Signs pointing to him headlining Coachella in 2023. So I think at the latest we'll get it before Coachella next year. So, I mean, that is definitely still pretty far away, maybe like 14 months, but I think we'll get it before then. Hopefully this year. We'll see.
Hopefully, yeah.
I need that.
All right. With that being said, let's move on into our month by month recaps. We're just going to go over a few album releases from each month, along with a song we picked from each month. So I'll start off with January, which, to be honest, was a very rough month. You know, I was texting you all day. We're going back and forth on like what we should put in there. It was just not very many releases and not very many artists we listen to typically. So it's a little bit tougher month, but for the album releases, I have The Voice by Lil Durk, Rich Slave by Young Dolph, R.I.P., Unbothered by Lil Skies. And those are the three albums I chose. The song I chose was Welcome Home DMX by Dave East and Jonesy. That was it's a soundtrack for a movie. I can't remember the movie off the top of my head, but produced by Griselda, and he had another producer on there that he did a little collab with for the movie. So, but overall, just a really slow month. And luckily this January has been a lot faster pace than last was. So I'll pass it on to you though.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely a slow month. A lot of uncertainty still with COVID at the end of last year into the beginning of this year. So definitely makes sense why January would be a slower month there. So to kick it off here with February, this is definitely a better month. We had EP2 from JPEG Mafia, Tyron from Slow Tie, Shiesty Season from Pooh Shiesty, and Neon Shark versus Pegasus from Trippie Redd. EP2 by JPEG Mafia, great project, as well as Tyron, definitely a slept on project, which is why I chose the song Terms by Slow Tie with Dominic Fike and Denzel Curry as one of my standout tracks from this month. Such a great track, such a great project from Slow Tie that I would definitely recommend anyone checking out if you haven't had a chance to listen.
All right. And then going into March, we had an extended play from Drake. We didn't get Certified Lover Boy in January like we were supposed to. You know, that would have made it a little bit better, but we did get a Scary Hours 2 extended play. Justice by Justin Bieber, YBN Namir with Vision Land. You know, he's got a banger on there. Classic song on there. I'll save it for the video though. And then we got Unlocked 1.5 by Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats. And then we also had Soulfly by Rod Wave. The song I chose for the month was a Lemon Pepper Freestyle by Drake featuring Rick Ross. I feel like anytime those two collab on a song, it's going to be a hit for sure. It was very tough to choose between Wants and Needs or that song, but both are bangers. Both are very good songs. I like the three songs off the extended play. How'd you feel about
I was definitely bumping it right when it dropped. I mean, I thought Lemon Pepper was going to be one of my favorite songs of the year when it came out. I don't think it really ended up finishing towards my top of my list, but at the time that was heavy in my rotation. Great song. Like you said, Drake and Ross never have missed really on their songs. You can take it back to like Free Spirit before the Take Care era. Just so many great songs they've had together. So to move a little bit here into April, the albums that released here were Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine by Brockhampton, La Machina by Conway the Machine, Angelic Hoodrat Supercut by Kenny Mason, Slime Language 2 by YSL, Destined to Win by Lil TJ, Michigan Boy Boat by Lil Yachty, and This Thing of Ours by The Alchemist. This is definitely where 2021 started to take off a little bit. A lot of big albums dropped here this month, but my favorite song this month was A Plus by Kenny Mason featuring Denzel Curry. Kenny Mason, up-and-coming artist from Atlanta, had a really great project this month with features from Denzel Curry and Freddie Gibbs. Such a unique artist that really has been able to take different genres like rock and metal, put that with his rapping ability and make some really unique music. When you look at somebody that we talked about last episode, like Lil Peep, who has been able to blend genres together so effortlessly, Kenny Mason is just another great example of someone doing that. Kenny is much different from Peep though, because he's much more of a rapper than Peep is. Traditional rapper, I would say. And so he's a really unique person to watch. And then this next year.
Definitely. And I definitely think that's something that we could see some future stars blossom into, you know, is just people that are mixing genres, you know, bringing in fans from different sides, you know, with different perspectives. So it was a great project. Great song as well. You know, after that with May, you get one of the Mount Rushmores. You get them checked off the list for, you know, their latest album with The Off Season by J. Cole. And, you know, you also had albums from Kodak and Also an anniversary edition of Juice World's Goodbye and Good Riddance. I don't think he was mentioned in the last video. So shout out Juice, big fan for both of us. So.
That's juice.
And then the song I chose was 95 South. This is actually a very difficult decision because there was just so many bangers on the off season. It was one of my favorite albums of the year, of course. So that's the one I ended up doing. It's just a good little hype track, of course. What were your thoughts on the off season though?
Man, I thought the offseason was a pretty good J. Cole album. Definitely a good return to that mixtape style. J. Cole definitely sounds very hungry on this project. I think I'd put it second in his discography, just behind 2014 Forest Hills Drive. That's a lie. I definitely put For Your Eyes Only ahead of it.
Yeah,
as well.
You saw the look I gave you, and you saw it on my music story this week.
Yep, I knew
that
I was
album
capping.
That album is a 10 that just I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later, but For Your Eyes Only is a 10.
For Your Eyes Only is
Are
fantastic.
You with the wall?
For Your Eyes Only is fantastic. That's on me. That is cap. It goes 2014 Forest Hills Drive, For Your Eyes Only, and then the off season.
And honestly, for me, that it may catch up to 2014 Forest Hills Drive just with all the meaning behind it and everything. But we can talk about that another day. So
man, that would be big. I just think 2014 is such a good album. And I mean, that
classic
kind of just hit me at the perfect time in my life. I was in high school. That's when I was really developing my taste. So that's like one that's going to stick with me for a long time.
Definitely a classic.
Definitely. Moving on to June here. Some pretty good releases this month. We had Voice of the Heroes by Lil Durk and Lil Baby, their collab project. Culture 3 by Migos. The Life of Pierre 5 by Pierre Bourne. Planet Her by Doja Cat. And Call Me If You Get Lost by Tyler. This was such a great return to rapping for Tyler after he's been experimenting with those other sounds on Igor. So I was really excited to get this project from Tyler. Such a short rollout, but that's kind of how Tyler does it. Just a quick video and then gets the album out to you pretty quick. Did you give this album a listen? What do you think about it?
Yeah, it was very good. It definitely ranks higher in Tyler's discography for me. Even though it was such a short rollout, there's just so much you could have done with that Call Me If You Get Lost. You're seeing it on Bleacher Report or, all these sports pages using it, billboards in LA. So even though it was such a short rollout, it's a Tyler project, he may be on the Mount Rushmore of the 2010s. So, I mean, let's check in another box there, of course. And then another project, I was very excited for was Culture 3 by Migos. It didn't hit the same way the first two Cultures hit, of course, but it was long awaited after, they're kind of all doing their solo thing for a little bit. So
yeah, definitely a little bit disappointing on that project, but still some good songs on there. Man, Call Me If You Get Lost, that was my album of the year this year. Such a good project. But the standout track for me from that project was Corso. That's the one I'm going to play for you guys at least. I didn't want to put in one of these longer songs. My actual favorite would be Sweet, I Thought You Wanted to Dance, or even Wilshire. But I mean, those are like 9-minute songs. And if we add that to this episode, it's going to be like a 2.5 hour playlist.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Yeah, so we can't be doing that. So I put Corso. Corso, such a great track. Definitely stand out for me. I heard this at Lollapalooza, and that was what really cemented it for me. You talked about last episode hearing No Role Models at Rolling Loud and how much that meant to you. This was such a great song there for me. When Tyler said that last line, we said, remember I was rich, so bought me subdue emotions and a new boat, so I'd rather cry in the ocean. It's T, baby. That just hit different because it's been like years since I'd seen Tyler. To see him in person after such a great album, I hadn't seen him since Flower Boy time. So to see him now after such a great run he's on, man, just hit a little bit different and made that one of my favorite songs of the year.
Definitely a great track, of course. So let's move on to July. This was honestly one of the bigger months for me. So you kick off the month with You See For Yourself by IDK. We hit on that a little bit. We'll always hit on that every video. IDK will be mentioned in at least every video, hopefully. Hopefully we're getting some more no label grads on here soon. So that's in the works.
Shout out the fam. We'll get them on soon.
And then you move on to Vince Staples' self-titled album. You got another Pop Smoke album, Faith. The House is Burning by Isaiah Rashad, one of my favorite albums of 2021. Definitely would make my list if we ever pursue that. Then you have Fuck Love 3 Over You by the Kid Laroi. And then you have Bobby Tarantino 3 from Logic.
Yeah, I think this was definitely a really great month. On that one day in July, you had You See For Yourself, Vince Staples, and then another album you did not mention was Temporary High in the Violet Skies by Snow Allegra. Not really rap, so I can see why you left it off, but I was a busy boy that night. I listened to all three of those albums multiple times, and I was like, oh, these are great. Vince Staples and IDK really stuck with me in rotation. Some songs off Snow Allegra's project, but wow, those
It
were
helped
great
out a little bit
projects.
with the 10-track album from Vince Staples, which to touch on that a little bit, like what are your thoughts on when artists tone down the songs, they're right around 10 or even lower than that? What do you feel, how do you feel about the smaller projects?
I definitely think I'm a quality over quantity guy. If I'm going to get, I mean, on that Vince project, you only have 8 songs really because 2 of them are skits, but there are 8 great songs that were in my rotation all year. I would much rather have that over a project, not to throw shade, but you look back at like Scorpion by Drake, you got the double-sided over 20 tracks, very long project, but it feels like a lot of filler, not necessarily all hits. I'd much rather have those 8 really good tracks, especially when you look back at like that Wyoming run from Good Music. I'd take those tracks over a long project with some okay songs and some
Yeah,
bad songs any day.
definitely. And I don't see too many people arguing that for sure. But, it does provide, for a guy like Drake who has, this pop persona almost, and then this rap persona as well. It provides him, so I like the concept of it, but I think, maybe 10 tracks on one side and 10 tracks on the other side, cut that in half. But,
Definitely.
so then the song I chose was Sundown Town by Vince Staples. Definitely my favorite track on the album. Just a classic Vince Staples song, honestly.
Man, my set on there definitely Lil Fade. I love Lil Fade. That's just such a banger.
I feel like there's definitely not a wrong choice off that album.
No, definitely. Moving on here to August. August is just such a great month for releases here. We had King's Disease 2 by Nas, Pyrex Picasso by Benny the Butcher, Bo Jackson by Boldy James and the Alchemist, Long Term Effects of Suffering by Suicide Boys, Trip at Night by Trippie Redd, Hitler Wears Hermes, 8 Sincerely Adolf Side A by West Side Gun, and of course, Donda by Kanye West. Such a great month. I mean, I loved the Griselda releases this month, but I mean, Donda obviously the standout this month. Did you have a favorite track off of Donda?
I love Come to Life, but praise God, that's got Baby Keem, one of my boys, along
Tame
with
Impala.
Travis. So I mean, just Baby Keem's verse might put it over, but I got to go with Come to Life. That's just an amazing Kanye track. That will be one of the classics off the album.
Come to Life, definitely a strong track. I mean, I see a lot of people putting it towards the top of their all-time Kanye songs ranking, so I definitely not mad at that take. And I mean, like you said, that Baby Keem verse on Praise God is just great. Tame Impala, bada boom, bada ba bing. I mean,
yeah, definitely. That was a big period of time for Keem, and we'll get into that a little more with our next month. What were some other songs off Donda? Because I know your song's not off Donda that you chose for the month. So what were some other tracks off Donda, that were great tracks for you?
man, off the grid. 504's verse, maybe the best verse on Donda standard release. When I was in jail, I was low key. Shout supporters that wrote me. That verse goes crazy. Kanye has a great verse. Iconic line. Talk to God every day. That's my bestie. Playboy Cardi also has pretty strong contribution on that track. So that's a big standout for me. What about you? Do you have any besides Come to Life?
Yeah, of course. I love Jay-Z's verse on Jail. That's right up there with, like you were saying, 504's verse. I feel like if you told me, even a month or two before Donda came out, 504 is going to have a 3-minute verse and it's going to be the best verse on Donda, I would have called you stupid. So I mean, that was amazing to see. Mixing those 3 artists together, it was an amazing track. So that'll be probably Kanye's biggest banger off the album for sure.
Definitely agree. And going back to Jay-Z there, I mean, the return of the throne, such an amazing thing to see. I mean, I heard somebody talking about being at that first Atlanta Donda listening party, and they were talking about how this volume in the stadium was so loud you couldn't even hear the songs that are being played, and so they couldn't even recognize it was Jay-Z's voice. That would be so crazy. You get home, you get on Twitter, you're like, that was Jay-Z.
Yeah, it was just his verse, just the return of the throne, like you said. Even with the Donda, I'm with your baby when I touch back road, it was just touching to see, of course, on Donda. So
great to see. Such a great verse. But as you mentioned, my song I chose from this month was not off of Donda. I actually chose a song off of Boldy James and the Alchemist project, Bo Jackson. The song I chose was Photographic Memories featuring Earl Sweatshirt and Rock Marciano. Such a great song with verses from Rock Marciano and Earl, really making great additions to this song, and had to be my favorite song off the project. Definitely some other really great songs on there, but this was definitely a standout that stayed in my rotation all year.
Definitely. Great track, by the way. It was definitely unexpected. I thought it'd be something off Donda, but hey,
Yeah,
keeping me on my toes here.
Got to put the people on a little bit. I feel like a lot of people might not have heard that one, so I was like, some of the songs on Donda are a little basic. People have heard them. Let's put them on to something new.
So moving into September, this is another big month. 3 or 4 straight big months that we were getting here. Where we started out January, February started out a little bit slower, but we Love You Tekka 2 by Lil Tekka, of course. Certified Lover Boy finally came out by Drake. The Melodic Blue by Baby Keem, very high on my list for the albums of the year. Montero by Lil Nas X, and Sincerely Control by NBA Youngboy. What were your thoughts on some of the projects that came out in September?
Man, the Melodic Blue, such a great project from Baby Keem. I mean, ever since Die For My Bitch dropped in 2019, I was really looking forward to his next project to see what was next for him. And then you get that initial single. Well, you get a couple initial singles, I guess, last year with, Sons and Critics Freestyle, Hooligan, and then even into No Sense, which initially all those songs were left off the project. So the first real single for the project was Family Ties, and you were like, or I guess Do-Rag Activity.
Yeah.
Do-Rag Activity. It didn't hit the same for me at first as I was hoping. I was like, man, this song's gonna be great. But I feel like it grew on me a lot.
It's crept up in my rotation a little bit. I gotta admit, it wasn't my favorite track at first, but like you said, it was just such a huge album, a huge debut album, just a very, very good album. And he just debuted such a different sound. I felt like, from songs like Orange Soda that he's popped off with before. Family Ties, such a huge song. I mean, especially for me and you, it hit a little close to home. It was just, that's hands down my track of the year. I don't need a ranking to do that. I'll tell you guys, I'll tell anybody that, that's my track of the year, of course. And it was just so impressive for Baby Keem. Anytime you're going verse to verse with Kendrick Lamar, your big cousin, it's great to see. So like you had pointed out, personally, this song came out in August. So it couldn't make it as much as I wanted it to. But song I did choose was Issues by Baby Keem, which kind of hits on why the album was such a big thing for me and other listeners, of course. He's hitting with these deep tracks like Issues while he has the bangers, like Family Ties. I love when an artist can do that, be multifaceted, especially on the same project, and have the songs hit a little bit harder along with the bangers.
Definitely a great project. I mean, I agree with you. Family Ties, definitely one of my favorite songs from last year. That dropped the Friday when I was at No Label Academy, and it just hit a little bit different. I was listening to it in my bed, and I was like, this song just bangs. I was like, I cannot wait to listen to this like in a real life setting. And then shout out to Obi, IDK's boy and his DJ. He played this song at the end of our last day of class, and we were all just jumping around, going crazy. Like, man, that felt like some family stuff for real. So I was very happy. It just felt right.
The song will, spoiling the viewers a little bit on our first meet and greet with the fans. Jonathon and I will be at the St. Louis show on, March 29th?
I believe it's Tuesday, March 29th.
So
Baby
of course
Keem,
that'll
hit.
Of course that'll hit a little bit different, with the family there. So it's not, we're extending a little bit farther. So
moving on to October here, this is another pretty strong month for releases. You had This Thing of Ours, Volume 2 by The Alchemist, Life of a Don by Don Toliver, Punk by Young Thug, Shut the Fuck Up Talking to Me by Zach Fox, LP by JPEG Mafia, and To Hell With It by Pink Pantheress. Pink Pantheress, I feel like, is one of those artists. She just gets thrown in with like the rappers. She's not a rapper by any means, but I feel like people that listen to Pink Pantheress also listen to rap. So threw it in there.
I just I love not a rapper. The Super Hot Fire. Who it is.
But I'm not a rapper. She's absolutely not a rapper. She's a TikTok pop singer, but she's fire. Check out that album if you haven't heard it. Very short. But of course, I'd be remiss if I did not mention the re-releases to streaming of Faces by Mac Miller and Live Love ASAP by ASAP Rocky. Two of the best mixtapes of all time came out on streaming services this month. Such great mixtapes. Do you have some standout tracks from these projects that you enjoy?
So Acid Drip off Live Love ASAP, that was the one track that was constantly in rotation at the time. I had to look back, think about that one a little bit because you got me there. So you said I got you last week with something else. So you definitely did get me there just because I haven't revisited the projects in so long, but great projects. Love Mac, love ASAP. Definitely, 2013 vibes. So it was
Definitely some classic tracks and classic projects. So the song I actually ended up choosing from this month was Sandman by A$AP Rocky. Such a great track, new track that came with this re-release to streaming services. Also got to give a special shout out to Yeah, the bonus track off of the Faces re-release. Two fantastic tracks and great additions to the projects that really made them special when they were re-released to streaming.
definitely. And I just love when they're finally able to do that, finally able to clear with whether it's samples from some of the songs or you're just not having them on the streaming services yet. Especially with being a Lil Peep fan, that kind of hits close to home. Once they get like Crybaby and Hellboy finally on Apple Music, those were huge for me too. So, but moving on to November, things did slow down here a little bit. I only chose a couple albums that were, worthy to, for me at least. I had An Evening with Silk Sonic by Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, and then Back on My Baby Jesus Shit Again by DaBaby, of course.
Of course.
Glad that man's free, of course. Like I said, a little bit slower a month, but you're getting two quality projects there for sure.
Yeah, Silk Sonic, such an unexpected duo. I mean, they teased us all year long that this album was going to drop. We got that Leave the Door Open single very early in the year, and I was just ready for this project from the second I heard that first song. So they really played with my emotions as they put this album off. I'll be honest, I've not given this DaBaby album a spin.
I haven't given it too thorough of a listen. I think I've listened probably a few times, but like I said, it's just glad to see that man free again. And then moving on to the song, I didn't want to do this just because the song did release, but it was a remix, so I'll cut myself a little bit of slack. I chose R.A.P. Young, the remix by Isaiah Rashad. This time he has Project Pat and Juicy J on there. So kind of touching back a little bit on July, I believe, is when he dropped. Yeah, The House is Burning. That was one of my, one of more underrated albums, underrated listen for sure. But just a great song, and I do think Isaiah Rashad, he's coming up.
Definitely. I feel like he's been pretty underground for a lot of his career, starting to get some more mainstream attention. So definitely love to see that for him because he's definitely deserving of all the praise he gets. Moving on to December here, it was the end of the year, but we had some pretty good releases. We had Wake Up Lucky by Lucky and Filthy. Then you had Fighting Demons by Juice WRLD, Super Tecmo Bow by Boldy James and the Alchemist, their second project together of the year, Magic by Nas, Live Life Fast by Roddy Ricch. Some pretty good releases here. Did you have any of these in your rotation?
So Roddy Ricch, of course, he's back on the wall there. You got Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial. That was just such a hit for me. This album kind of flopped for me, along with Fighting Demons by Juice WRLD. They're both on the wall back there. Both of my more prominent artists in my rotation, but they were okay. They were mid. I'll give them mid for sure.
I'll agree with that. I feel like they've definitely been getting a lot of mixed reviews from the fans. Neither of them are really my rotation very much.
And I'll be a little bit harder on Roddy Ricch because Roddy Ricch still has the ability to make music, so maybe he's gonna have a bounce back. But Juice WRLD, I think it's time to just let that man rest.
Yeah, definitely a very tough thing to do for the families in the estate that chooses what music comes out. Such a difficult decision because he has no say in it anymore. But especially with Juice WRLD, because he has so many songs unreleased. But
there's a reason they're unreleased. They're not complete. And the Touchback in July, Pop Smoke had his Faith album, and that was another one. I felt like a lot of the tracks just weren't complete. They weren't what the artist wanted out. That's why they weren't out. It's good to get it as a fan, but you like it at the to be done correctly. So
definitely, and that's such an interesting topic with Juice WRLD. Because there's so many people that have heard like hundreds of unreleased Juice WRLD songs that he didn't choose for them to be released. You know what I mean? So it's kind of tough. That the family doesn't have a say, or he doesn't have a say anymore to say, okay, that's quality that we want to get out there. So definitely pretty tough. The song I ended up choosing from December was not from one of the projects. It was a single. I chose Mercedes by Brent Faiyaz. I'm very much so looking forward to Wasteland by Brent Faiyaz coming up this year. Could be released anytime coming up here pretty soon, which is getting us to another point here. Next week, we'll be talking about our most anticipated albums of 2022 and some hot takes about what we're going to expect this year. So you definitely want to tune in for that.
Love Brent, by the way, the Toxic King, one of them, like you said, you touched on it a little bit last week, but he's definitely up and coming. I always love the tweet. It always pops up, every once in a while on my feed. It's just Brent Fies is what we thought Bryson Tiller was. And it's very true, even though Bryson did have a very good project. He had his deluxe come out in 2021. So
Yeah, Bryson definitely a pretty solid artist, but Brent is like one of my all-time favorite artists. I didn't give him a mention last episode.
I know
he's definitely pretty new in the game, and for me at least. But he's definitely catching up to some of these people.
Killing it.
Definitely killing it. So to move on here into some of the news of what just happened this past week, we got to start. We're recording this on Friday. Well, I guess now it's technically Saturday. It's after midnight, but January 29th. We got to talk about Benny the Butcher and J. Cole dropping Johnny P's Caddy. Such a great track. What do you think of this track?
It was great. And, it's great to see, like you were saying, Benny the Butcher kind of flying under the radar, such an underrated artist for so long. And now he's, collabing with one of the biggest artists in raps. It was definitely a good listen if you guys haven't listened yet.
Definitely a standout track. Definitely great to see Benny. Really excited for Tana Talk coming this year. Also, shout out to J. Cole. He dropped on January 28th, his birthday. Great to see that. Moving on here, a lot of big album rollouts starting right now. Obviously, we have to mention Donda 2, set to come out on February 22nd, 2022, executive produced by Future. Do you think this project is going to come out on the date?
I did have a question for you on this. So I'm going to set an over under here. I'm going to set the line at 50 here, over under 50 days from February 22nd before it comes out. What's your pick there?
This might be a hot take, and you're going to say I'm delusional, but this project is going to come out on time.
Okay. I respect it. I think I think there's 2 albums that came out on time, and then one of them came out a day before. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. But like you included here in the notes, there's just so much astrological meaning.
Kanye obviously is a very spiritual guy here. He even shared something on his Instagram saying that February 22nd, 2022 is the date where Earth is getting a spiritual makeover with its first ever Pluto return. Honestly, I have no idea what this means, but a Pluto return astrologically is when the heavenly body returns to the same position in a birth chart as it was when the chart began. Really no idea what that means, but definitely some spiritual stuff going on. Seems like something Kanye would be very into. So I feel like he's really set on this date. 2/22/22. That's just a really cool date number wise. So I feel like it's going to be iconic. Kanye's going to drop Donda 2 on 2/22/22. I feel like it has to come out.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? Since you're so sure it's coming out, I'm going to hammer the over that I set. So it's going to be over 50 days before it comes out. But also, I want to give a quick shout out to all my astrology girls out there. Hit the Snapchat, so we can you can explain the meaning behind that.
Yeah, I need to know. I'm an Aquarius. Tell me what that means. But also, I feel like this album, it could be one of those Kanye projects like The Life of Pablo, where it comes out and then there are updates made to it. But I feel like Kanye will want to get it out on that specific day, although it might not be perfectly finished. So we'll see. Even he had updates to Donda. So,
he's been in the lab, though, I will say.
He has been in the lab. Another album that the rollout's underway, Pusha T, with his upcoming project, recently posted a picture of a photo of Lana Del Rey with Coke covering the picture, as well as he was spotted on a video shoot with Kanye. Very excited for another project from Pusha T. Daytona is like a classic in my book. Definitely excited for that. And the idea that him and Kanye could be collaborating on another new track. Last time they collaborated together was What Would Meek Do off of Daytona. So I would be very open to hearing what they're working on. Definitely. What do you think about this project?
Definitely. And, just to touch on Daytona a little bit, that was such a great project. That little 4 project run Kanye had in 2018 was amazing. Like you said, you're a little bit excited for the Ye and Pusha T collab. Of course, you're going to get that with, it looks like you're going to get that at least. Is the Lana Del Rey picture, is that foreshadowing a little bit though? I'd be down for a Lana Del Rey and Pusha T collab. So,
man, that would be crazy. But Pusha T is definitely one of those people where he can make something happen with any artist. if you look at somebody like 070 Shake, very talented vocal artist, featured on Santeria, of course, off Daytona. I'd be very open to some Lana Del Rey vocals on an album like this. I definitely think he could make it work.
Shout out, get him back in the episode for the second week here. Shout out my boy Childish Gambino. You know, we had him saw the Lana Del Rey track, Young and Beautiful, The Great Gatsby, great movie. Shout out my boy Mauricio. You know, this we all can come together off that movie.
Shout out to the boys. Another big album here that's coming out soon is Nigo, who is the creator of Bape. He's going to have a project coming out soon with some big name features: Pharrell, Kid Cudi, A$AP Rocky, Tyler, Lil Uzi Vert, Pusha T, and more. And a key note on this is that Tyler and Rocky will be on the same track on this project for the first time. They're going to be reuniting since Potato Salad. What are your expectations for this project?
I mean, just once you come with names like that, I mean, you're setting the bar pretty high, and it's not, it's not something that's clouded. We're hearing about this early, so I mean, hopefully this is a great project. And back to the clothing aspect of things that I brought in last week a little bit. I'd love to see collab more Bape collabs with Pharrell, Kid Cudi, or A$AP Rocky. Along with the latter of those artists that you mentioned. So
definitely very exciting. Definitely a big fashion aspect of this album. I mean, a lot of these songs were previewed at Paris Fashion Week just last week. So definitely excited to hear. I heard a snippet of a Pusha T verse on that album, allegedly, and it was definitely very exciting to hear. Moving on, Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. Denzel Curry just released a single called Walkin' this week. Very good track. Also announced that his album will feature T-Pain, Thundercat, Rico Nasty, Black, JID, Slow Tie, and more. Very excited for this project. Taboo, one of the big sounds of 2018, which was a great year for music. He's been in the lab. Very excited to see what he has.
That's kind of like back to the Baby Keem thing, where he didn't drop in 2020, where he's taking a couple years off, or a few years off, I guess, in his case. And it sounds like it's going to be a great project with some very underrated features. I like the feature list he has set up there. So
definitely. I mean, you look at like Thundercat, such a great addition to any song, really makes the instrumental better. And if he's a vocal artist, that's even better. Also, I mean, I love JID. Very excited for his project coming this year. We'll get more into that next week, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, next thing here, Post Malone has a new album on the way called 12 Karat Toothache. Allegedly, it's going to be 45 minutes long because Post Malone really wants to preserve all of his artistic ability and not put any filler out. What do you think about this?
It's very interesting. Post is he's higher on my list, whereas he's a little bit lower on yours. But I'm a very big Posty fan, of course. I think Beer Bongs and Bentleys, and I mean, actually all of his albums, including Hollywood's Bleeding and Stony, of course, they're all very great projects. I think Hollywood's Bleeding took a step back from where the other two were at. So, I mean, hopefully you can get back to that level by providing us with a little bit shorter of an album. Like you said earlier, with the quality over quantity. So we'll see what happens with that.
Definitely. I've not personally really gotten into any of Post Malone's albums since Stony, but I mean, I'll definitely give this album a spin especially if it's only 45 minutes long. I mean, and he is really focused on getting rid of filler. I'll definitely be very excited to listen to this album because I do think he has talent. He's definitely seen a lot of success in his career. So I'm pretty excited for this project, actually, surprisingly. All right. Well, that was a pretty packed week of news. I mean, a lot of potential albums coming here in the near future. And of course, that fantastic release from Benny the Butcher and J. Cole. But we wanted to get into some questions from our audience. We had 2 questions this week. You just gave a shout out to Childish Gambino. We'll give him another shout out here. He gave us a question. He said, do you think smaller artists should let streamers and creators use their music in their videos, their streams?
100%. I mean, it's free advertising unless, I mean, of course you're paying the streamer or the creator, but I mean, especially with TikTok, the way that's blown up since 2020, if you have a song blow up on TikTok, you are getting your name out there. That's just coming from 2 marketing majors. I'll advocate for that very, 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 very strongly because it's free advertising, free publicity,
Absolutely. I mean, obviously labels and artists are focused on making their money, but there's something really invaluable about that awareness and that recognition that you just can't buy. And so being able to have your song get out there to so many people so effortlessly, you're not really doing anything to get it out there. You're just letting people use your music. You know what I mean? The point Devin was making here was actually about some of the really old FaZe Clan videos. That's what he mentioned to me when he proposed this question. He was talking about how different members of the FaZe clan in their gaming montages will put songs from like Logic and like Hoodie Allen and all these rappers that had pretty successful careers. Obviously, Logic very successful, Hoodie Allen pretty successful, but they really made a name for themselves throughout these montages and really found a community through gaming.
So then, yeah, no, definitely to touch on that a little bit, like you said, they both, all the people blew up off that. I mean, maybe it was separate paths, but I strongly advocate for that, of course. A great question, Devin. So then moving on to our second question, this one made me sit and think a little bit. This is a great question by my friend Levi. Which artist has evolved the most throughout their career, or who can you see evolving the most in the future? And who would be your pick? Or, I mean, you could do either or for the question there.
Man, this was a great question. I really had to sit down and think about the careers of some people that I really listen to a lot have had. I think Tyler the Creator is an easy answer. I kind of touched on that last week about how his evolution really from shock rap and capitalizing on that to just such artistic freedom on Igor and Come If You Get Lost and Flower Boy. But my answer is another artist I talked about last week, Childish Gambino. When you look at his evolution from his mixtapes, really using a lot of one-liners and really witty lyrics to just such unique music like he was making on Awaken My Love. I mean, that's such a different sounding album than anything that was really coming out. So I really got to say Childish Gambino. I mean, I've loved to see his growth. Obviously, he's grown a lot outside of music as well. So I'm just excited to see if we'll get another Gambino project. Excited to see where his sound would go.
Definitely. For that, it took me, I had to tell you my answer so we didn't pick the same one, because I feel like, it was almost a given with this one. But I think the progression Mac Miller had in his career was very interesting from his first two albums or projects, let's say, with Kids and The Best Day Ever. Then I felt like, he had a few more projects in there, but with watching movies with the sound off, I felt like, he just kind of gave us a different sound there. And then, where that ended, with albums like Circles, Swimming, it was just a very interesting progression in his career. And, it garnered him a lot more fans, from different, that give you different perspectives and everything. So that was great to see. And it's just unfortunate that we didn't, continue to see the evolution of Mac Miller.
Definitely. I mean, he's one of those artists I feel like just had so much respect from his peers. When you look at his friends in the industry like Vince Staples and Earl Sweatshirt, those guys really respected what Mac was doing and they were inspired by him. So I really agree with you. He really had such a great progression in his career. He went from this rapper, Easy Mac with the cheesy raps, to create something so beautiful like Swimming and Circles. Just such great projects. Definitely great albums for him. So definitely agree with that. It's a great choice.
And like I had mentioned earlier in the podcast, with giving us questions and everything, we're wanting to do this every week, end our segments off with, a few questions from the audience. So whether that's through our socials, our personal socials, or even just the podcast, one of the platforms we're on, we're on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook coming soon. So we would love for, you guys to give us some questions. Maybe if it gets to the point where we have too many questions, we'll of course get to all of them though. Maybe that'll be week by week, but we were able to fit everything in on this week. So
definitely leave us some questions. We'll get to them every week. Hey, if we get a lot, maybe we could do once a month. We'll do an entire episode of fan questions.
Yeah, we'll do a little mailbag that we got. So
yeah. But anyway, I think that's just about everything we have for the week. A lot of news happening last year as well to touch on. Really enjoyed this episode. Really great to take a look back at everything that happened in 2021 and everything that's happened at the start of January 2022. If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure to tune in next week as we're going to talk about some things that we're looking forward to in 2022.
Another thing, Jonathon and I had talked about this earlier. We're definitely, open to doing recaps throughout the years. Like 2018 was such a big year in hip hop. So I mean, if you guys would like something like that, just please leave us, feedback on that, or like I said, I've gone through it all. What you can contact us on. So, but that about wraps it up for today, huh?
Definitely. I feel like a big goal of our podcast is to touch on the songs that made our life so great so far. You know what I mean? So being able to go back to 2016, that classic year, 2018, even further back than that. We'd love to do that and tell you guys a little bit about what we've grown up on. So if you want to hear about that, please let us know on our social media. Please leave us some questions. Make sure to like, leave a rating, do all of that, share the podcast. We really appreciate that. Thank you to everybody that did the first episode. Hey, we'll see you guys next Monday.
See you guys. Thanks for tuning in.